Hey everyone, Jakinto here with a Blood Death Knight build guide for patch 9.0.5. There's been a lot of changes to the Blood Death Knight since Shadowlands came out, from tuning changes to our damage and mitigation, to changes to our legendary powers. This is why I wanted to make an updated guide just to keep you all in the loop of what's currently optimal for the Blood Death Knight in Mythic Plus and for raids. So whether you're completely new to the Blood Death Knight and you're just starting out, or if you've been playing it for some time, you just want to make sure that your current information is all up to date, I'll have you covered in this video. Do note that the information I'll be presenting you in this video is for optimal Blood Death Knight play. Any and every build is viable currently for the Blood Death Knight at a very high level in Mythic Plus and for raiding, so if there's a build that you enjoy playing the most, definitely choose that one. But if you're really looking to min-max your Blood Death Knight, hopefully this video will help you out. So let's get into it, starting with the Covenants and Soulbinds. The first Covenant that we'll cover is Venthyr. Venthyr is the best Covenant for Mythic Plus, mainly due to the runic power generation of Swarming Mists. When you have 5 enemies around you, Swarming Mists will generate 15 runic power every second, which is a large amount of runic power for only a 1 rune cost. It also has a low cooldown of 1 minute, which makes it a really great cooldown to have. The teleport of Door of Shadows also gives the Blood Death Knight some much needed mobility. Venthyr does perform decently in raids, but it does lose its effectiveness in single target situations, since you won't be generating as much runic power with Swarming Mists. I would say that Venthyr is the best well-rounded Covenant if you're looking to do both Mythic Plus and raiding. The vampire-like theme also matches the Blood Death Knight aesthetic very well. For Venthyr Soulbinds, all 3 Soulbinds are great options for both Mythic Plus and raiding. General Draven is the go-to defensive soulbind because of the 10% damage reduction below 40% health. This, paired with the stamina from Hold Your Ground when you're standing still, can really make you a lot more tanky. So if you're looking for a very defensive build, choose General Draven. Theotar is a great soulbind to give your allies some damage boost, and this comes from Wasteland Propriety, where you'll be giving 4 allies 3% versatility for 10 seconds after activating Swarming Mists. If you're able to pair this with your allies' cooldowns, this can really increase their damage output, especially in Mythic Plus. It also gives you, as well as your allies, a bit of extra mitigation. The mastery from Soothing Shade is also quite significant, however you do need to be standing within a certain range under that umbrella to receive this mastery. This isn't always possible, as you might have to kite or move out of a mechanic. Just keep that in mind if you're choosing Theotar. Nagia is a great choice if you're really looking to push damage. Thrillseeker's 20% haste for 10 seconds kinda acts as a mini Bloodlust. The downside of this is that you're not able to activate it on command. You do have to wait for your Thrillseeker stacks to build up to 40, and if your stacks hit 40 when you're about to hit some downtime, you won't be able to make use of all that haste. So really make sure if you do pick Nagia that this won't happen. Both Exacting Preparation and Dauntless Duelist are a great option for the last Soulbind trait. Both of these will give you a nice damage boost as well as decrease the damage that you take. Next up, we have the Kyrian Covenant. Kyrian is the best Covenant to run for raids and single target situations in general. Shackle the Unworthy does do a large amount of single target damage and also gives you 8% damage reduction while the debuff is applied to your enemy. Kyrian does fall off in multiple target situations because its Covenant class ability is not an AoE ability. It can spread to nearby enemies, but it doesn't do this right away. The File of Serenity that you get from your Steward is amazing as well. It acts as an additional health potion that can cure you of things like bleeds and poisons. Having this cure, especially for bleeds in Castle Nathria, is huge and can definitely save you in situations where you might otherwise die. The other services the Steward offers is nice as well, but won't increase your player power. For Kyrian Soulbinds, there's really only one option I'd recommend, and that's Pelagos. Combat Meditation gives you a good amount of mastery on demand, though you do have to pick up orbs in order to extend its duration, so make sure you're picking up those orbs when you can. Let Go of the Past is a great trait to have as well to decrease your magic damage taken. Now we'll look at the Night Fae Covenant for the Blood Death Knight. Although Night Fae did get a nice buff for Blood Death Knights in patch 9.0.5, we're still not seeing Night Fae being played in meta builds. That's not to say it's a terrible Covenant, it just tends to fall behind some of the other Covenants out there for Mythic Plus and for raids. But if you do want to run the Night Fae Covenant, here's what it has to offer. Death's Due is the Night Fae Covenant class ability, and it replaces Death and Decay. Death's Due does not do more damage than Death and Decay. However, it does have added effects. When you're standing in Death's Due and you use Heartstrike on an enemy, you gain a stack of a buff. This buff gives you 2% strength and stacks up to 4 times. You also apply a debuff to each enemy hit by your Heartstrike, and this debuff decreases the damage that that enemy does to you by 2%, and that stacks up to 4 times as well. So this buff and debuff does give a good amount of effectiveness to Death's Due. However, since Death's Due does not do any more damage than Death and Decay, all the increased damage that you're getting is from the strength buff that you're getting onto yourself. Soul Shape will give you a good amount of mobility with its movement speed and teleporting abilities. However, if you use an ability while in Soul Shape form, you will go out of that form. For Night Fae Soulbinds, Naya is the best to go. Grove Invigoration will give you a good amount of mastery as well as maximum health, and Naya's tools Burrs will do a good amount of your overall damage. Now let's take a look at the Necrolord Covenant. Now while Necrolord is not the best covenant for Mythic Plus or for raiding, it is the best Unholy Death Knight covenant currently. This means that if you're maining Unholy Death Knight, you're probably going to be playing a Blood Death Knight that's in the Necrolord Covenant. Abomination Limb does do a good amount of damage on a 2-minute cooldown. Its ability to grip in enemies towards you is nice, but sometimes you might not want that to happen. So in cases where you have Abomination Limb active, but you don't want to grip in enemies, you might have to deactivate that buff. Fleshcraft did get a nice buff in patch 9.0.5, and it gives you a good shield along with damage reduction while channeling it. Although on paper it seems nice, a lot of times you probably won't want to use that full 3 seconds channeling the shield. For Necrolord Soulbinds, we do have 2 options. Bonesmith would be the go-to option for pushing a bit more damage. The flat armor and strength from Forgeborn Reveries is nice, as well as the ability to fight for 10 more seconds if you die. Serrated Spolders adds a large amount of damage overall. Although you are sacrificing a Potency Conduit for the Soulbind trait, it will do more damage than any Potency Conduit that you have. You're also able to increase your defensiveness by choosing an Endurance Conduit, which is great. For the last row of traits, you can either choose Marrow Gemstone or choose to go your Potency Conduit. Either choice is good, the damage between the two is pretty minimal. The second Soulbind you have for Necrolord is Emony. Lead by Example can further accentuate your burst windows when activating Abomination Limb. It also gives 4 nearby allies primary stat, which can really increase their damage, especially if you pair it with their own burst windows. Within Emony's Soulbind, you do have the option to make Fleshcraft a channel ability while moving. That would be the more defensive option for Emony, as you do have to sacrifice a Potency Conduit to do this. Next, let's move on to the Blood Death Knight Conduits. The best Potency Conduit to run is going to be the one that gives you the most amount of damage, and that's going to be Withering Plague in most situations. If you're Night Fae, you will want to run your Death's Due Conduit first, because that gives you more damage than Withering Plague. However, if you are any other Covenant, you do want to run Withering Plague as your first Potency Conduit. For your second Potency Conduit, if you're Night Fae, you run Withering Plague. If you're any other Covenant, you will run your class Covenant ability, whether it's Swarming Mists, Abomination Limb, or Shackle the Unworthy. The Endurance Conduits you pick should increase your mitigation. The top Endurance Conduit you should be running is Meat Shield, due to the 3 seconds increase to your Dancing Rune weapon, as well as the maximum health it gives. The second Endurance Conduit is Hardened Bones, as that gives damage reduction linked to your Lichborn. Note that Reinforced Shell can be used in situations where you have 3 Endurance Conduits taken, or you can replace it with Hardened Bones if you need the extra seconds for your anti-magic zone. For our Finesse Conduits, it really comes down to the situation that you're in. For Mythic Plus, I would definitely recommend running Spirit Drain as your first Finesse Conduit that you choose. This conduit will net you a lot of runic power over the course of a dungeon. In raids, you should run Spirit Drain as well if there is an interrupt within the encounter. However, if there's no interrupt within the encounter, you probably shouldn't run this conduit. The second Finesse Conduit I recommend is Chilled Resistance, due to the decreased cooldown time of Icebound Fortitude. Finally, for the third Finesse Conduit, we have Fleeting Wind, which provides minor movement speed. Now we're going to move on to the Blood Death Knight legendary powers. And this really comes down to 2 choices, Super Strain or Crimson Rune Weapon. Crimson Rune Weapon is the best legendary power for Mythic Plus, while Super Strain is the best legendary power for raids. For Crimson Rune Weapon, you want to be losing Bone Shield stacks consistently to get the most out of the legendary power. For raids, there's just going to be too much downtime where you're not actively tanking. But for Mythic Plus, you will be actively tanking throughout the course of a dungeon, therefore losing Bone Shield stacks quickly and decreasing the cooldown time of your Dancing Rune weapon even more. Super Strain will give you more damage output in Mythic Plus and raids, but the defensive output of Crimson Rune Weapon in Mythic Plus is far greater than the damage output Super Strain will give. The runic power generation along with the damage of Super Strain is pretty significant, and because you're not losing those Bone Shield stacks fast, Super Strain is the go-to for raids. Now let's talk about Blood Death Knight talents, starting with raid talents. In the first row, Blood Drinker should be your go-to talent due to its damage output in single target situations. If it's an AoE encounter, you can go Heartbreaker for the extra runic power generation, but unless there's a ton of adds and you're getting maximum effectiveness out of Heartbreaker, you should be running Blood Drinker. In the second row, Hemostasis will give you the most amount of damage as well as healing output, so run Hemostasis. The third row, any of these options are viable, but I recommend going either Blood Tap or Relish in Blood because you're getting resources back from these talents. I prefer Blood Tap to get that rune back when I need it on demand, but if you want something a bit more passive, you can choose Relish in Blood. For the fourth row, Will of the Necropolis is the best hands down. Choose this every time. The fifth row is situational. If you need an on-demand slow, you can run Grip of the Dead to attach that slow to your Death and Decay. If you need movement speed, you should run Wraithwalk. And if you need a 1.5 minute cooldown on your Gorfiend's Grasp, run Tightening Grasp. In most raid encounters, Wraithwalk will be the go-to. The sixth row comes down to Voracious and Bloodworms. I would recommend running Bloodworms in most raid encounters as you do get increased damage and healing from the Bloodworms. Voracious effectiveness picks up when you're dealing more damage to use more of that leech effectively. And this is why Voracious is more so used in AoE situations where you're able to pump out a bit more damage. But for the most part, Bloodworms and raids. For the final row of talents, all of these options are viable here as well. I'd recommend running Red Thirst as your go-to, as that decreased cooldown time for your vampiric blood is great to have. However, Purgatory can be used if you're dying to a specific mechanic every time and you need that cheat death mechanic. Bone Storm is also an option, primarily if you want to push more damage, but it does do a decent amount of healing if you have a lot of enemies around you. Now let's look at our go-to Mythic Plus talents. For the first row, Heartbreaker is the best by far, as you get a lot of extra runic power from Heartbreaker over the course of a Mythic Plus dungeon. When you're using Heartstrike within a Death and Decay window, each Heartstrike will give you 10 more runic power, which is huge, assuming you have the maximum of 5 enemies within your Death and Decay. For the second row, we go Hemostasis, no competition there. The third row, all choices are viable. Foul Bulwark can be used, but should only really be used in very, very high keys where you're trying to survive a mechanic you otherwise wouldn't be able to survive without the additive health. So with that said, I would default more towards Blood Tap and Relish in Blood. For Mythic Plus, Blood Tap is my favorite for the on-demand rune, but if you want something passive, Relish in Blood is good as well. For the fourth row, Will of the Necropolis is the best, no competition here. In the fifth row, I would always recommend running Grip of the Dead, due to that Death and Decay slow. Having the slow can really help you in situations where you have to kite. Maybe you pulled a ton of mobs or you just don't have any defensives left. This Death and Decay slow can help you in lots of situations, so run Grip of the Dead. In the sixth row, I recommend going Voracious. Since you'll be pulling a lot of mobs at once, you'll be getting a lot of effectiveness out of that leech that Voracious gives you. The extra Death Strike healing is definitely noticeable as well. In the seventh row, I recommend going Red Thirst for the decreased cooldown time of Vampiric Blood. Purgatory can be used in very high keys, as well as tyrannical keys where you're not able to survive a mechanic without the cheat death. And Bone Storm can be used if you want to push a bit more damage. Next, we'll go over the Blood Death Knight stat weights. Above everything, you do want to prioritize the item level of your gear. Higher item level gives you more stamina, more armor, and more secondary stats overall. You should always go for the higher item level piece, with the exceptions of your neck, 2 rings, and your 2 trinkets. For these pieces, it is more important to go for the stats that you want as opposed to just the item level. So item level is priority 1. Following this is versatility. Versatility increases your damage done, increases your healing taken, and decreases the damage that you take. And all of these are great to have as a Blood Death Knight, so you're benefiting from every aspect of versatility. It is great to stack high versatility for both Mythic Plus and for raiding. The third stat priority is Haste. Haste makes your runes regenerate faster, which in turn leads to you generating more runic power since you'll be using more runes. And this in turn leads to greater damage output and greater healing on yourself. The fourth stat in the priority is Mastery. Mastery gives you Blood Shield, which gives you a physical damage absorb shield around you after using Death Strike. The magnitude of the shield depends on how much you healed and how much mastery that you have. As our health pools go up and we're able to start taking more damage, Mastery's effectiveness does increase, since we'll be able to heal up more and therefore get bigger shields from one Death Strike. Final stat in the priority is Critical Strike. Critical Strike rating is great for increasing your damage, however, it doesn't have great applications for mitigation. It does grant you parry rating equal to the rating of your Critical Strike, however, it's still a pretty small amount of parry that you get from it. So ideally, try to have little to no Critical Strike. Now let's talk about the best trinkets to run as a Blood Death Knight. In Mythic Plus, the best trinkets to run when pushing keys are the Blood Splattered Scale and Splintered Heart of Alar. Blood Splattered Scale will give you a large amount of damage absorption and do a decent amount of damage, while Splintered Heart of Alar will give you that cheat death proc, as well as do damage when it procs. If you don't think you'll need this cheat death, you can swap Splintered Heart of Alar with File of Putrefaction for more damage. Stone Legion Heraldry and Gluttonous Spike are also good options to run if you want a bit more of a balance between damage and mitigation. For raids, if you have other people in your raid group that are running Stone Legion Heraldry, make sure you're in a party with them and run this trinket. Its effectiveness does increase by 5% for every other person in your party with the trinket. Apart from this, it's really the same principles as Mythic Plus. If you want to cheat death, run Splintered Heart of Alar. If you want a balance between damage and mitigation, run Blood Splattered Scale or Gluttonous Spike. Or if you just want to go for damage, run File of Putrefaction, Dreadfire Vessel, Skulker's Wing, or Memory of Past Sins. Now moving on to item enhancements. For your cloak, Soul Vitality is a safe way to go to just get extra stamina. However, you can choose a different cloak enchant as well that grants you Avoidance or Leech. It's really minimal, the effectiveness that you get from it, but just choose what you like. For our chest enchant, it comes between Eternal Stats with 30 primary stat or Eternal Bulwark with 20 primary stat and 25 armor. Like the cloak, the difference between the two is pretty minimal. Either you go for a bit more armor, bit more defensiveness, or a bit more primary stat to push a bit more damage. For our gloves, we run Eternal Strength for the 15 strength. For both of our rings, we run Tenet of Versatility for the 16 versatility. And for our weapon, it comes between Rune of the Fallen Crusader and Rune of Hysteria. I would recommend Rune of the Fallen Crusader for the default option. Gives you a little bit of healing and a lot of primary stat with strength. But Rune of Hysteria is a viable option to run as well for that increased runic power generation. And for our gems, we do want to stack versatility, so we do run Versatile Jewel Cluster for that 16 versatility. Moving on to our consumables, for our flask, we do run Spectral Flask of Power for the 70 main stat. For our potions, we either use Potion of Phantom Fire for extra damage, or Potion of Spectral Strength if we want damage and some mitigation. Between oils and stones for our weapon, we do use Shadow Core Oil as that nets us the most amount of damage. For our armor kit, we do use the Desolate Armor Kit. For our food, we either use Steak a la Mode as our personal food for that 30 versatility, or Feast of Gluttonous Hedonism for that 20 main stat. If you have a choice between the two, choose the main stat. That's going to conclude my Blood Death Knight build guide for Shadowlands patch 9.0.5. If you want some guidance on how to perform your Blood Death Knight rotation as well as cooldowns, do check out my Blood Death Knight quick start guide for patch 9.0.2. Although the builds noted in the patch 9.0.2 guide are outdated, the information regarding Blood Death Knight rotation and cooldowns are still up to date, so do check that out if you need to. I also do want to mention that I have started Blood Death Knight coaching on Fiverr. Well, I do have a lot of Blood Death Knight videos, and I'll be coming out with more videos as well to help you out with the Blood Death Knight. If you feel like you need some one-on-one coaching, definitely check out the Fiverr link below to get some live coaching. It's also a great way to support me if you choose to do so, and makes sure I have money for food on the table. Finally, I do want to give a shout out to ALBON, who's the artist I've been getting all of my music from. He makes great music you can listen to, as well as music you're able to use for your own content. So please do check him out as well. I have a link for his channel in the description too. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate all the support. I hope this guide gave you some direction on how you want to build your Blood Death Knight. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.